Hello and welcome. Have you ever wondered how a whole country can just decide to change all of its rules? Well, today we're going to look at the amazing story of Spain and how its people did exactly that. They started a totally new chapter and built a democracy. So, here's our plan. First, we'll meet a new king who got things started. Then, we'll see the steps they took to build this new democracy. After that, and this is super important, we'll see how the people of Spain got to make the final decision. Then, we'll check out how Spain works today, and finally, we'll talk about why this story is still so important. Ready? Let's go. All right, so let's jump in. Our story starts in the year 1975. This was a really big moment for Spain, a time when everything was about to change. And things happened pretty fast. I mean, think about it. In 1975, a new king, Juan Carlos, comes along, and then boom. Just 3 years later, in 1978, Spain has a whole new rulebook, what's called a constitution. Now, for a country, making a change that big in only 3 years, that's incredibly fast. So, you might be asking, how do you even do that? How do you build a democracy? Well, it wasn't just one person. It really took a team of important people working together to create this new future for Spain. So King Juan Carlos, he knew he couldn't do this huge job by himself. He needed help. So he chose a prime minister, a man named Adolfo Suarez, to be his partner. These two guys worked together to bring all these new democratic ideas to Spain. It basically happened in 3 simple steps. First, the king kicked things off. He started the change. Second, the Prime Minister Suarez brought in all the new ideas. And third, they wrote everything down and created that brand new rulebook for the whole country. Okay, but this story isn't just about kings and prime ministers. Nope. The most important part, the most powerful part, was when the decision was given to the people of Spain. They got to make the final choice. Remember this date, December 6th, 1978. This is a super, super important day in Spain's history. But what actually happened on that day? Well, on that day, Spain had something called a referendum. A referendum is pretty cool. It's a special kind of vote where everybody in the country gets to answer one single really big question with a simple yes or no. And what was that big question? It was about that new rule book, the Constitution. You know, a constitution is the most important set of rules for a country. It says how the government should work and explains all the rights that people have. So the question for the Spanish people was simple. Do you want this new constitution? And the answer from the people was a huge, loud yes. Just look at that chart. Almost everybody who voted said yes. They wanted the new constitution. At that moment, the people of Spain made it super clear they were ready for democracy. So because the people voted yes, the way Spain's government works changed completely. So what does it look like now? Let's take a look. Today, Spain's system is called a parliamentary monarchy. I know, that sounds a little complicated, right? But it's actually a pretty simple idea about sharing the work of leading a country. Let's break it down. Okay, so basically, there are 2 big jobs. On one side, you have the king, who today is King Felipe VI. His job is to be the head of state, which means he's like a symbol for the whole country. But then on the other side, you have the government. The government is the group that actually runs the country every day and makes all the laws. So let's make that super clear. In Spain today, the king is the symbol of the country. But, and this is the really important part, the king does not make the laws. That job belongs to the government. They are the ones who make the big decisions for the people. So 2 different jobs, both important. So we've gone through this whole big change that happened in Spain. But why are we talking about this today? Why does a story from a long time ago still matter to us? Well, I think the biggest lesson here is that the voice of the people is powerful. It really is. This story shows that when people come together and make a choice, they can change the future of their country. The Spain we know today exists because of what ordinary people decided to do back in 1978. And that brings us to a final thought. This whole story was about creating a new set of rules, a new constitution. So it makes you think, doesn't it? How do good rules help us? Not just in a big country, but what about at your school? Or even just when you're playing a game with your friends? What makes a rule a good rule? One that's fair for everyone. Something to think about. Thanks for listening to this story with me today. See you next time.